In this video, we're talking all about directories. What are they? Do we still need them? And should you be listed? Hey, I'm Mark Aubin from My Hello Hello, the worldwide contact directory, and today we're going to talk all about directories. Many of us remember them, but those memories are fading away. Directories. They were the phone books that we used to use to find people, before there were search engines like Google. But what are they exactly, and how did they become such a big part of life? And stick around to the end, and we'll answer the question as to whether or not you should be listed in a phone book. So let's get started. There was a time, not too long ago, that phone books could be found in every house, every business, and in every telephone booth. Directories are more well known as phone books, or sometimes telephone books, or yellow pages, or white pages. Phone books list people and businesses, and usually in alphabetical order. They're usually the size of a piece of paper and as thick as a brick, and run in the thousands of pages. The pages themselves are made of very, very fine, thin paper. The purpose of a phone book is to usually find contact information, a phone number, or maybe an address. And there are usually different kinds of pages in a phone book. The white pages are for listing individuals. The yellow pages, which sometimes come in a separate book, are for listing businesses. And sometimes you'll also find sections that are blue or green pages, and they list government organizations or departments and such. In the past, before people had cell phones, for every landline, a phone service provider providing the service to that landline would send a phone book each year to the person who owned the landline. Now that started to diminish quite quickly as people switched over to cell phones, and a lot of companies don't send a phone book anymore unless a person specifically requests one. When you think about it, printing all those books, sometimes in hundreds of millions, is adding up to billions of pages, and that's certainly an environmental issue. And that's part of the reason why phone books aren't being used, but a big reason, of course, is that now we have the internet and we can look things up on the internet digitally instead of a paper-based format. Directories go way back, far before the invention of the telephone, and they used to just list addresses. In the 1700s, it became pretty common for city directories to be printed. In the 1870s, over 100 years later, when the telephone was invented, phone books became popular for listing phone numbers. And about 10 years after that, in the 1880s, business phone books like the yellow pages started being printed as well. From the very start of the invention of the telephone and the use of telephones in the 1870s and 1880s, there was also the option of using directory assistance. For those of you who ever had landlines and who remember, you could press a button on your dial and it would give you a live person who offered directory assistance to you. In the days before cell phones, pretty much everybody who had a telephone number was listed in the phone book, as well as their address. It seems kind of creepy now, but it was so common then that no one really questioned it. It was possible to have your number unlisted, but that came with a fee, and it was actually super uncommon for people to have unlisted numbers, because it really was, the phone book was really the only way you could reach somebody. Here's an interesting fact. You might remember telephone booths. They were still very common about 10-15 years ago, and every one of them had a telephone book. Well, in really busy cities, at places like train stations or airports, it was often the case that travelers would arrive and use these phone books to help them get around the city. And of course, you would have people tearing pages out of these phone books. In fact, it was so busy at some locations, like the train station in New York City, that they had to replace the phone books on a daily basis, every day. So fewer and fewer people are getting landlines, and businesses are choosing not to be listed in physical phone books anymore. So that means that the printed phone books are quickly disappearing. But some companies see phone books as a great place to continue advertising. And of course, there are also subscriptions by businesses who want to be listed in the phone books. As long as there's money to be made, printed phone books will continue to be produced. For some of the directory businesses that are printing these phone books, they also tend to use them as a vehicle to offer other services, usually online directories or other associated internet services. The books act as a physical reminder that the people who have a subscription to list their business are getting something in return. Directories are also available online, but as mentioned earlier, mostly people with landlines are listed in phone directories, and people with cell phones have been excluded. This was a decision that was made many years ago by mobile providers who, at the time, had to deal with cost structures that forced customers to pay for incoming calls. So, if there had been a phone book publicly available of cell phone numbers, customers would have been potentially prone to having spam and other phone calls that they hadn't welcomed and would later have to pay for. Now, a lot of these things have changed and leads to the question, why don't cell phone providers now create phone books? Why wouldn't we want to have a telephone book again? Of course, I would be missing this opportunity to mention one company that's trying to create a worldwide directory, My Hello Hello. It's free, it's simple, and you control the listing. It's supposed to be a worldwide contact directory for phone numbers, social media, addresses, and of course it has a whole slew of privacy settings. So it might just be that for most people who go into this directory, they might only see your name, address, and the city where you live. But at least we can find everyone in the world in one place. That's the goal of My Hello Hello, to become the worldwide phone book. Okay, so that leaves us with some bonus questions. So first, should you be listed? If you own a business, then you should definitely get listed. Whether it's online or in a phone book, you want to show that you're a legitimate business and that people can look you up. In fact, creditors will often include in their assessments a consideration as to whether or not you have a phone number for your business. But maybe you're just a regular person and you want people to have a way to find you. And there are many reasons why people might be trying to find you, and we cover that in another video about searching for people. But maybe there's an emergency, or maybe you have some long lost inheritance from a distant relative who needs to find you. Or perhaps you've just lost someone's contact information or lost touch with them over the years. So there are really 4 different situations you might be facing when it comes to being listed. You might currently be listed. You might currently be listed and want to be unlisted. You might be unlisted. And you might be unlisted and want to be listed. You can generally be listed in 3 different places. Your phone service provider might actually have an option where you ask them to list you in some sort of online directory or over directory assistance. A second option might be to make a request to be included in the white or yellow pages where that option is available, depending on where you live. And finally, there are more random online directories where you could list yourself or your business. Of all of those, of course, My Hello Hello would be the most legit. Okay, so if you are listed, that probably means you are using a landline. And for a fee, you can usually request to be unlisted if that's what you're interested in doing. If you're unlisted, that probably means you have a cell phone and some sort of mobile service provider. And there is a chance that that mobile service provider could get you into some kind of printed or online directory, but not likely. There are pages online that allege to be able to get you into white and yellow pages, but I would be careful about the risks involved with that. So if you found this video valuable, help us build a worldwide contact directory. Join My Hello Hello. It's free, it's simple, and you control the settings. You can join by going to myhellohello.com.